Welcome back to another edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Raffi, and as always, joined by Davian. Davian,
What's up?
how are you?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Theodore first off, I want to apologize about last week's episode before the draft not being posted. I'm sure some of you saw on the TikTok that we posted our predictions about the Texans pick, which was surprisingly right for the most part. I mean, we both had the right picks, Theodore, and
We're
then
right by proxy.
yeah, we were right by proxy. Theodore is unable to join us as he is currently trying to find a prom date. And so it's just Raffi and I for this night.
Yeah, Davian. Luckily, I know you have a prom date, so we don't need to
Of
worry
course,
about you
of
looking
course.
for anyone. If you are a lady and you're looking for someone to go to prom with, this guy to my right on my stream, definitely hit him up. Don't go too crazy. We already have a wait list going, so we'll have to sift through the applications and see who would like to take this lovely short king to the prom. Let's get away from that stuff and talk about the real stuff that people really came here for. That's sports. So before we get into some NFL draft talk, let's get into the NHL playoffs. So the NHL
Poor
playoffs
Jack
have been,
Hughes, man, losing a tooth, that must suck, man.
yeah,
All the girls are like, man, he's no longer beautiful anymore. I'm like, hey, give that man some respect. He might not have a tooth, but that guy's still handsome. But hey, Devils won today 8-4. I mean, I don't know. It's like the Devils they go down 2-0 and then something just clicks in them and they just start going on a rampage.
What shocked me the most about that is this isn't like, if it was the Rangers, I'd be like, okay, that's kind of crazy. Igor Shesterkin got absolutely lit up like a Christmas tree. But Carolina is known for being very good defensively and being very careful with the puck. They were not good. I mean, obviously, they allowed 8 goals, but a lot of those goals were not at the fault of Frederik Andersen or Peter Kochetkov, as his last name is. One of my favorite last names to say, by the way. It was a rough game by the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes, for a moment there, I thought they were going to come back from down 4 goals in the third. And then all of a sudden, luckily, they're like, I mean, you scored 2 shorthanded goals. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
That series has been absolutely crazy. At least the Rangers series there were some swings here, some swings there after games 1 and 2 before the Rangers just laid down and died, of course. But my gosh, the Carolina Hurricanes, you guys got to clamp up on defense. You got to be better than that. And Davian, I do want to talk about your Rangers before we talk about the inevitable, me talk about the Bruins. Davian, what is it like to have your team just not show up for a critical Game 7?
I mean, honestly, they kind of stopped showing up after, like, Game 2. Let's be honest. Like, yeah, they did win Game 5, whatever, but at the end of the day, wait, did they win Game 5?
It was Game 6.
Yeah, they did. Oh, Game 6, yeah. Did they win that game?
So.
Yes, but they weren't there. They just played, like, look, I went to a Rangers game this season, and they played awful that night. It was against Carolina, and just nobody was, like, the offense was terrible. And that's what you saw, that you have to, look, defense wins championships, but one, defense was barely there at times. And when it was there, it was just kind of lucky that Shesterkin was able to stop it. 2, just the offense was not there. You need a score to be able to win on the scoreboard, and they just weren't there. And it's like, you can't tell me anything. This series was the best series the Rangers could have gotten. You have the Devils, you know the team, you've played a lot against them, right? And you had home advantage wherever you went, whether you're at MSG or whether you're at Prudential Center. Rangers fans followed. Why? I mean, we could get into the details of how, Devils games tickets are cheap and Rangers tickets are expensive, and Ranger fans are probably, able to travel more. But look, the point is, this is the best series they could have gotten, and they fumbled and they blew it.
Gerard Gallant was fired. I think that
was too far. Respectfully, I know, Raffi, you probably have a better take than me, but I think that was too far. I think he got us to this point. He was building up a team. The Rangers went all in for some reason to get into the playoffs and to win it all, and they sold, all right? Look, getting Kane was a great move, but it just wasn't, the chemistry wasn't there. The Rangers started to build up like the Brooklyn Nets, and we were slowly going to start collapsing if we really don't start figuring out, building up our youth. building up that fourth line. That was incredible. The kids line last year was insane. And yet this year, instead of trying to build up into that, we said, screw that. Let's get into these two massive stars and see if they could push us all the way to this, lifting the Stanley Cup. I'm sorry. I'm done with my rant. Raffi, go ahead. What's your take on the Rangers firing their coach?
Yeah, so I've been on both sides of this the more and more I think about this. Obviously, if you also want to check out our YouTube shorts, we got something up for the first time in a couple months. I finally had time to do it. So definitely keep an eye out for more YouTube shorts going forward. There's a shameless little plug right there, Benchwarmer Sports. You're watching on YouTube. You might as well hit the subscribe button and check out our YouTube shorts as well. This was something that was very tough for me to really decide on because part of me believes that it's the coach's job to get his best players in positions to win and score goals. But on the other hand, too, Artemi Panarin, I need to say this. I don't like the fact that the Blackhawks traded Artemi Panarin for Brandon Saad. But the reason why he was traded, aside from cost, was because he did not show up in the 2017 playoffs. He just didn't show up at all in that series, and the Blackhawks got swept, dynasty is over, yada, yada, yada. The past few years, Artemi Panarin on the Rangers has shown that he does not show up for the playoffs. He doesn't care. It is obvious that he does not care at all for the Rangers' success in the playoffs. He will pick up all the points in the regular season, but when the playoffs come, he is an absolute ghost. And yes, you can be, Raffi, you scored the game winner last year versus Pittsburgh. Yeah, but you can't. Artemi Panarin being only 16 points in 20 playoff games, and then there's the fact, too, that he had 0 points after game 1 is just utterly unacceptable. Mika Zibanejad, I love Mika Zibanejad. He also just didn't show up. Everyone's dogging on Alexis Lafreniere, but it's ridiculous. Why are we getting mad on the guy who's barely getting any ice time? Because yes, this is a Gerard Gallant thing as well, but still, you got to give the kids ice time so then they can grow and develop and then get those points. They've been sheltering them in third line minutes, treating them like they're third liners rather than the players that could be second, first line players on a normal team. I hope that the Chicago Blackhawks can get Alexis Lafreniere this offseason for like a second or third round pick, because if he's on the Blackhawks, he's going to be a 50-plus point player on that team.
Yeah.
The Rangers need to give opportunities to the youth, and you're stuck with Panarin. The Rangers are now in purgatory unless they can get things figured out.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. Panarin does not show up in critical moments. It just, the team was not there. Like, the offense just, no shot. I didn't feel like any of the shots following game 3, basically, game 2, were meaningful. I felt like there was
4-5-7, they scored 2 goals.
I felt like everything was just a swing and a miss, and I felt like the team wasn't there. And I'd also like to comment, the more and more I watch games at MSG, the more and more I realize, look, MSG is overrated because, look, when I was there, the buzz was only there when the team was winning. When the team was not winning, the buzz is not there. There's no cheering. There's nothing. Everyone's just silent. You can hear a pin drop in that arena. I'm watching these Ranger games, and it's, the moment the Rangers are down, like, everyone just shuts up. You're watching the Devils games when the Devils are down, but they're doing something. You hear chanting going on. Like, look, Ranger fans at the end of the day are New Yorkers. New Yorkers are arrogant. They want to see winning. If they don't see winning, they won't be cheering. And, you could also see that with the Knicks at times as well. So, that's my take on MSG. Devils, as much as I hate you, I'd love to see a parade in New Jersey that I could attend. No, just kidding. I'm rooting for the Kraken. They're going all the way. In the meanwhile, the Maple Leafs seem to be choking in the second round.
Stop saying things. I have done all I can to not jinx this team. I haven't watched a single Steve Dangle video yet. I have not made a single comment about that series yet. I'm saying nothing. I'm not saying anything. I'm not getting burned. I'm not saying anything about that series. Third period's happening right now of game 3. We'll see what happens in the third. If
they're choking. Raffi, they're choking. I'm telling you, man.
Speaking of choking, the Boston Bruins choking a 3-1 lead to the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have a sixth sense as an Atlanta Falcons fan where I can just tell when things are about to go wrong. And when I saw the Bruins were going to play the Florida Panthers, I was like, I don't like this matchup because although the Bruins had much better defense, the Panthers' pace, as I said, I had the Bruins in 6, so I was still wrong about this series. But the Panthers, people doubted the Panthers, and Matthew Tkachuk owns the Boston Bruins. I am so disappointed in the Bruins because they had so many opportunities. If they just cleaned up their act in numerous games where they had terrible turnovers. Tyler Bertuzzi, the first goal in Game 5. What are you doing? He just passes it to the Florida Panthers player in front of the net. Like, here you go. Here's a free goal. Hampus Lindholm, McAvoy in Game 3. No. In Game 2, they were just giving the puck to the Florida Panthers for nothing. And it's those turnovers just killed them.
Right.
I think they should have gone to Swayman in Game 6 instead of Game 7. That's neither here nor there. Congrats to the Panthers, I guess. I mean, once again, I am a Blackhawks fan, so although I'm pretty upset about the Bruins for my dad,
Right.
I still wanted the Bruins to go on a deep run because I love Bergeron, which we don't know what's going on with him. I'm very disappointed in the Bruins.
Yeah.
I think as time goes on, people will really appreciate and see how magical that regular season was because it's an NHL record with how many points they got. And I mean, the Panthers, they're an 8 seed, but I mean, they're clearly giving it to the Maple Leafs right now. They're showing that it wasn't just the Bruins being absolutely bad, but man, the Bruins just kept shooting themselves in the foot continuously.
I completely agree with that. I mean, look, we know Boston when you set the record for the most wins or the most points, at the end of the day, you never come up with a championship. Still crying after that Patriots lost to the Giants. But
you were like 6.
What? Yeah,
you were like 2 years old.
I wasn't really even a Patriots. I wasn't even that big of a Patriots fan back then. Okay. But Raffi, I do have a question for you. After seeing these Panthers perform against the Bruins and seeing them so far perform against the Leafs, do you think they're a legit contender for the Stanley Cup?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I can see any of those teams in the East. The Leafs finally won a playoff round. That's something we need to touch on as well. And the Panthers are a team that right now are feeling it. And the last thing you want to do, the last thing you want to be, is playing against a team that is feeling it. We saw it in 2019, unfortunately, with the St. Louis Blues. The 2013 Chicago Blackhawks were on a roll where they're just like, we're taking the Stanley Cup, which was almost 10 years ago today. Man. The glory days. Davian, you know what it is like as a Patriots fan when the glory days are now gone. It's very sad. Anywho, you don't want to be playing a team that's feeling it. And the Panthers, they are feeling it. They have won both games at Toronto. That's another thing, too. Road teams have been running the show this year in the playoffs. It's been the road team has won way more than normal. That's a whole nother thing. The Panthers are playing well. And as I've said numerous times, they're feeling it. Bobrovsky, the President's Trophy killer, some might say, is playing really well too. I think the Panthers could easily go on a Stanley Cup run. I would not be shocked at this point. I honestly would not be too upset about it as a person who picked the Bruins because if you're gonna, I have nothing against the Panthers. I just like ripping on the fact that they have only 2 fans. So.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you there. I think they're a legit team. I'm looking at the West, and I don't really have a clear contender there, but I'm going to go out and say I really like the Kraken. I'm just saying I really think this team has a shot. I mean, look, of course, all teams have a shot at the Stanley Cup. But I'm just saying, they've been performing pretty darn well overall. So, I mean, yes, I know the series is 1-1, so they're not, about to go out and sweep. But they've been performing well, and so has Edmonton. But Edmonton, it's another Canadian team. And we know the Canadian teams. They never go all the way. They haven't for the past 30 years. So,
Yeah, so the team that I'm looking at a lot is the Vegas Golden Knights. And for those wondering which team's Twitter is the best, go to the Vegas Golden Knights Twitter. They've been absolutely
it's so funny.
Hilarious with all the Draisaitl stuff. Leon Draisaitl is showing up. The rest of the Oilers, Connor McDavid's been good. Evan Bouchard, talking about just twisting the knife a little more as a Blackhawks fan. Evan Bouchard versus Adam Boquist. Adam Boquist was rushed. It was not working out. He got traded to Columbus. Evan Bouchard, I believe, has 15 points right now in 20 games. He's been amazing for the Oilers, and he's provided a third source of scoring for the Oilers, who are always led by Draisaitl and McDavid. Leon Draisaitl is just on a mission this year. My concern with the Oilers is how is their defense going to hold up? And what happens when the whistles get swallowed by the refs and they're not calling penalties? Because right now the Oilers, I think, have a 60% power play. It's absolutely absurd. They're scoring at will. Last night, as we record this podcast, the Oilers had, I think, 3 power plays early in the game. They'll score nothing by midway through the first. That is a lethal power play. If Vegas can make sure that they're disciplined and hope that the refs swallow the whistle a little bit and don't call too many soft calls. Although I didn't have too many complaints on the refs in that game last night. I think the Oilers could be in trouble. They need to start scoring more 5-on-5, and they cannot let Draisaitl just run the show. The Oilers are still a team that I think can go on a deep run. I am kind of leaning more towards Vegas. Dallas is another team that I've looked at. Joe Pavelski scoring 4 goals in Game 1 after being injured, almost basically got knocked out versus the Minnesota Wild, I believe, in Game 2 or 3. Knocked out the whole series, too, for that. And 4 goals, that's been great. I like the Dallas Stars a lot. That's the team I had going to the Western Conference Final. But as you said, Davian, the Seattle Kraken team, one of the big things that I've said numerous times on this show, and I'm sure I can find clips of it, you need depth to win the Stanley Cup. And the Kraken have good depth. I know there was a lot of people who were ripping on Dave Haskell being the chosen head coach for the Seattle Kraken. He's getting the best out of his players right now. And although Jared McCann is hurt, they're still, as a unit, they're playing well. They don't have that superstar player. Matty Beniers is close to it. And once again, the big thing for me was, can Philip Grubauer step up? Can he play well? Can he bounce back after some rough regular seasons the past 2 years? And he has stepped up. He's made saves. You don't need to go crazy. He doesn't need to shut out every team. But the fact that he's making big-time saves is crucial for the Seattle Kraken to go on a deep playoff run this year. So I'm all aboard on the Seattle Kraken train as well, David.
All right. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not the only one because, look, we all know I'm not the NHL expert here. Raffi is. So, Raffi, whatever you just said, I'm just going to say I completely agree with you on that point. I think we should move on to another topic before I make a fool of myself, like college football. By the way, Roll Tide. Roll Tide.
What? Theodore, we miss you. Roll Tide.
Yeah, Theodore, we do miss you. We do. I guess I'm now go Big Red since I'm going to Cornell, but there's not much of a football team.
Commitment.
Oh yeah, big commitment. Yeah. So to all the viewers watching, I am going to the great Cornell University, which has the best sports there, with the Ivy League teams. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough few months there. I'll just be visiting Illinois or or Theodore down in Bama to go watch some football.
I heard you're walking on for the men's gymnastics team. You might be one of the tallest people on the team.
Hey, gymnastics team. Why not go for the football team? I'm sure I could be starting QB there.
You can be a good place kicker.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you never know.
But speaking about football, first off, I think the Patriots traded up for a place kicker too. So that's something we can get into later on. Let's talk about the NFL draft. So let's start off with the top. Bryce Young goes number 1 overall, and the Redditor who said Will Levis was going to go first overall changed all the odds. That is something that I aspire to be one day, where I can just drop something like that and everyone believes me. I'm not a bettor. So that man is my hero. That's amazing what he was able to do, where he somehow convinced thousands of people and all the sports books to get Will Levis that high up in the sports odds. It was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
Bryce Young goes first, though. That's what we expected. The Texans, though, this is where I want to start things off. They went for a big swing. They went CJ Stroud, and it was like, okay, I would have liked Will Anderson, yada, yada, yada. And then they said, you know what? Let's just get Will Anderson, too. And you know what? I respect it. You got your cornerstone on offense now. You got your cornerstone on defense now. I don't like that they traded their own first next year. I wish they traded the Browns first next year. But, hey, I like the Texans' aggressiveness. Does it remind me of draft day? Absolutely, 100%.
Yep.
But once again, if you're the Texans, you look at the AFC South and you're like, this is wide open for us.
Right. Look, if you're the Texans, I think if you're the Texans going into this draft, you're like, yeah, we sucked last year, but like we have a real shot of doing well this year. And I think it was a good trade. They traded with who? The Colts? Was that who they traded with, right?
The Cardinals.
Cardinals, right. Look, the Cardinals need more picks after, all the moves that they've made. And I think it was a good trade for both sides. Yes, I agree with you. I feel like the Texans gave up a bit too much moving up from the 12th spot, especially with the Cardinals. I feel like if you're thinking about leverage perspective, I'm not sure who the Cardinals, were the Cardinals really getting offers? I'm not really sure. I don't think anybody was going to trade up to really go for Levis, right? Or the only other person available there was Anthony Richardson, and nobody really seemed that interested.
Tennessee.
Right. So other than Tennessee, really, and then I guess we could continue going down the draft board. Anthony Richardson, great pick by the Indianapolis Colts. I really think that he's not a surefire product right away, but He could with a good coaching, which he has. I think he could easily, become a star player. He reminds me a lot of Cam Newton. And then beyond that, if we look further down, I feel like a lot of teams did really well, except for the Lions. They kind of surprised me picking Gibbs.
See, my thing with the Lions is, and this has been said a million times at this point, so I apologize for sounding like a broken record because it's gonna sound like a broken record. If you take some of their picks and you move them around with where they're taken, I think the Lions did pretty well in the draft. I think Campbell, from what I've heard, is a dog, as some people might say, and he's basically the perfect guy for Dan Campbell. So I like that pick. Gibbs again, yeah, it's pretty high, but once again, I'm going to trust the Lions on this one. I think the Lions will win the NFC North. We'll see obviously what happens over the coming months to see if that holds by the time we make our predictions. And then probably we'll do it in August if I had to guess. But yeah, I think the Lions did pretty well in the draft as a whole. I'm not going to doubt the Lions. They're on the uptrend, and I just hope that continues. I do want to mention real quick before I throw it back over to you, David, because you seem very eager to comment.
Yeah.
I like the Cardinals trade specifically because they were planning on taking Paris Johnson Jr. at 3, and instead of taking him at 3, they traded down, picked up another first-round pick, added some more assets, and were still able to get their guy. So I really like that trade for the Cardinals as a whole. Texans, I understand it. Cardinals, I think the Cardinals won just because they traded down, they picked some additional picks up, and once again, they got their guy at 6 that they would have taken at 3. And they listened to Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you there about the Cardinals. I think again with the Lions, I feel like picking Gibbs at 7, right? It was 7. Oh, I think it was
12.
7th pick. What was it?
12.
12th pick?
12.
Wait, they didn't pick a 12th pick. The Lions?
Yes.
No, the Texans.
Wilson went 7th. No.
Okay, whatever. Either way, too early. I think they could have easily traded down and really pick Gibbs. But, I mean, look, I think he's a dog, as you like to say. I mean, and then trading DeAndre Swift, I don't know why you wouldn't do that before the draft if you knew you were going for a running back.
You know what I mean? Don't want to show your cards. I just think
right, but you could have gotten more for DeAndre Swift. Like they ended up getting a 4th rounder for him.
I don't think they could have gotten too much for him just because we've seen time and time again that players that aren't – if you're not an elite talent at a non-quarterback position, you're not going to get much. Jalen Ramsey, I mean, he's not that bad, and he's still a top 10 corner at the bare minimum. He got traded, I think, for like a 3rd-round pick to the Dolphins. So the value on players is much, much less in comparison to draft picks. So I think it was the best move that they could have done. They signed David Montgomery, so I thought it was a good move for the Lions as a whole. Yeah. I do want to lead this into my Atlanta Falcons pick before I throw it over to you, because I'm sure you really liked your pick with the Patriots before I spoiled your entire thing. Bijan Robinson, that was expected over the past couple of days leading into the draft. I, as a Falcons fan, I am all for it. I would have liked Jalen Carter, but I understand why they would choose Bijan instead, just because of that little cloud of skepticism of what's going on with his character. With Jalen Carter, I get it. Bijan is a guy that I don't think you could have really traded down too much. I think the Eagles would have potentially considered him. I think the Lions would have considered him now that they took Gibbs. I don't think he would have fallen past 12, so I don't really know who you trade down with, essentially. And with Arthur Smith's big thing being ground and pound and boosting up the O-line, obviously, in the 2nd round as well with one of their picks, I think this is a good pick for the Falcons. I like this a lot, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's a running back. Why would you take him in such a high slot? He's a generational running back, and he can even play slot wide receiver too. He is very versatile. You're basically drafting a do-it-all type player. And let's be honest, you're giving all the pieces for your second-year quarterback, Desmond Ridder, who's playing his first full season. You have Bijan now at running back. You have Drake London at wide receiver. You have Kyle Pitts, who hopefully is going to be more active in the passing game this year at tight end. The Falcons are building a really good offense. They have a decent offensive line rate, above average, some might say. The defense they addressed in the offseason with Jesse Bates and numerous other additions, Calais Campbell, another big signing that they had. The Falcons are on the upswing, and I'm not going to go crazy and say, they're winning the division. Maybe they will. But I am saying that I think it was the right pick. You split carries with him and Tyler Algier, because Tyler Algier, pardon me, showed that he's an 1,000-yard rusher last year. So there's no reason why I don't think he and Bijan can be a dynamic 1-2 punch for the Atlanta Falcons. And they're just going to run it down everyone's throats, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think, I'm looking at their picks, Falcons right now. I mean, they didn't have that many. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They only had 7 picks, which, I mean, relative to like teams nowadays, they usually have like a lot more than 7. But I mean, they addressed everything. They addressed the offense. They addressed the offensive line. They addressed the defense in the 3rd round and in the 4th and 7th. They picked players that I feel like are coachable. I think they had a very successful draft. I want to talk about my Patriots real quick. I'm going to just search up all of their draft picks.
Let's first talk about the place kicker, Davian.
I mean, like, okay, so it started off amazing
with
Christian Gonzalez. Just picking him, nobody else really cared. I mean, as a Patriots fan, like, that's it. Like, Bill actually did it. He picked good first-round talent. The rest of the draft, I think, is questionable. Keon White, great pick in the 2nd round. I mean, that guy's an absolute dog on defense. 3rd round, also a very good pick. But then you look at the 4th and 5th round, and you're like, why are we picking a kicker in the 4th round? And, why are we taking a punter in the 6th? I feel like there's a lot of NFL veteran talent that you could pick, there that is good. I mean, look, you look at Bill Belichick. His main thing is special teams, and our special teams last year was awful. And, with Matthew Slater coming back, which is great, I feel like we need to address the special teams, and we did that all through the draft, which is pretty good. We adjusted defense. Secondary, we needed Christian Gonzalez. I feel like there's nobody else that would be better because at this current point in time, the Patriots have been lacking someone like Stephon Gilmore, who'd be able to really go up and one-on-one man coverage and be able to defend, Devontae Adams, defend Tyreek Hill, defend, all the Stephon Diggs, all the great talent that's in the AFC East. And so, look, I feel like they had a very successful draft. Yes, there were some questionable picks, but I mean, I feel like what team doesn't have questionable picks? I will say this. One thing I really liked was the Patriots trading down with the Steelers so they could pick Broderick Jones and really screwing over the Jets, knowing that the Jets would most likely take him. I mean, that's Bill Belichick. He's a mastermind in that. And, you trade down, you get more picks, and you're able to get the pick that you wanted. I feel like it was an absolutely winning scenario with that trading down. Speaking about the Steelers, I think they've had a very, very successful draft. And I know I'm not the first analyst or the last analyst that will be saying this, really. They just really covered everything that they needed. And, one thing that I really, really went under the radar was them trading, I think it was like a 7th or a 6th round pick for Allen Robinson, who used to be an absolute – we were saying he was going to be a generational talent, that he was going to be like one of the top 10 wide receivers. And I think at one point he was. Given the right system that I think he is in now in Pittsburgh, I think he could really shine. I think the Steelers team is really good. And I really think they're, again, going to be competing for the AFC North. Speaking about which, I mean, look, the Ravens, they clutched up. They signed Lamar Jackson. They paid him an arm and a leg, but they didn't really, they didn't go for Deshaun Watson type money. It was
Theodore is just rolling in his grave right now.
Oh, yeah.
Quarterback, how could you? I think it was a good deal, though. You have to do what you have to do, and let's be honest, in 5 years, the Lamar Jackson contract's going to be, well, I mean, it's going to be over in 5 years. But in like 2-3 years, it's going to be when you have Herbert getting paid, when you have Burrow getting paid, when you have, well, Josh Allen already got paid. But you get my point, though. As these other quarterbacks start to get paid, it's just going to be a one-up contest. So Lamar Jackson right now is the highest paid quarterback. But give it 2-3 years, and he's going to be probably top 10.
Yeah, no, I seriously think that it was the best contract you could have signed, and you always have the ability to restructure it. And it wasn't like all guaranteed money. There was a lot of movement around in that contract. I think overall it was a good contract. I mean, I feel like that. I mean, also I think we just need to cover this. As much as I dislike the Philadelphia Eagles, wow, what a draft! I mean, call them the Eagle Bulldogs, the Philadelphia Bulldogs at this point, with the amount of Georgia Bulldog players that they took. But, like, insane draft. You first 2 picks, you knock it out of the ballpark, and you pick up DeAndre Swift and cover up your running back. Because, the Eagles are sitting with their draft pick, and all of a sudden Bijan Robinson and Gibbs are both gone. you're thinking, oh, look, the Eagles now don't have a running back, and boom, they're able to trade for DeAndre Swift. What a perfect what a perfect scenario for the Eagles. I think they were one of the winners of this draft.
Yeah, for one, as I told Davian before this podcast, I don't like declaring winners and losers just because you can't evaluate whether your team is a winner or a loser for at least 4 or 5 years, in my personal opinion. I'd say 4 years, you can get a pretty good idea. And then obviously when you start to hear, okay, this player was given an option, this player was not given an option. I, as a whole, think that every team was a winner because they all had fun. And I think, honestly, for the NFL draft, I did not see too many fans up in arms about their team. I thought, for the most part, people were pretty content as a whole. Normally, it's pretty negative where some team is just like, oh, this team is terrible, this, that. But really, like, aside from like people, which they managed to twist the lines into a good thing by switching the draft picks, basically, there wasn't really any fans of any team that I felt like were just freaking out with how bad that the draft went. Obviously, there's teams like the Niners and Dolphins who didn't get first round picks, and that obviously affected how good of a draft they had. But I mean, if you're the Niners, you went all the way to the NFC Championship game, and you were like 4 quarterbacks away from potentially going to the Super Bowl. And the Dolphins, yeah, you probably tampering is not a good thing.
Right.
Davian, any closing thoughts on the NFL draft before we close the show?
I mean, look, I think overall it's just a very good draft. I feel like, we talk about, like, look, I know, Raffi, you don't like to talk about winners, but I think if we talk about losers, there wasn't that many. And the general consensus that I've been hearing from a lot of analysts who have been, really speaking to NFL executives, everyone really got what they needed this draft. We
Right.
talked about, we talked about before the draft. I mean, sorry again, we didn't post that video. That's on me. That, this isn't a star-studded draft, but it had a lot of good players. Like, we didn't have like Saquon Barkley and
Caleb
Christian
Williams.
McCaffrey, right? We didn't have a draft like that, but we had, like, in the second, third, and fourth, and even fifth round, your teams are picking players that felt like they could actually have a good role on the team. And it wasn't something like, in the NBA where you have like, oh yeah, we're gonna pick a second rounder and he might even not even see the light of day, or specifically in the NHL, you see that all the time. Well, more so in the MLB. I mean, MLB draft, I feel like
MLB is
the reason why we don't cover it is because it's impossible to follow.
MLB
But
takes
yeah,
7 years. NHL, you can at least provide analysis in the first round because normally those players are 1-2 years out. But once
right.
you go outside of the first round, a lot of those players are 3 years out at the very minimum for the NHL. But yeah, we can get all into MLB. We can dedicate a whole podcast to.
Yeah, for sure. And before we close, I want to talk about the other football. I want to congratulate Napoli on winning the Serie A for the first time in 33 years. Congratulations to Chelsea for not getting relegated and for getting out of the relegation zone. You guys were very, very close to getting it. I mean, well, of course they weren't going to. My Liverpool team, 6 games in a row, knock on wood. They're going after you, Man U fans. I'm telling you, they're gonna get that 4th spot. And also, all my NYCFC fans, tough loss yesterday. We'll pick it up the next few games. I'm going to be releasing reels coming up every week, and I will be posting on TikTok every single week. The TikTok is benchwarmers_sports. We are back on that grind. My APs are done. I still might not have a prom date, but we're figuring that out. Either way, I'm back on that grind. As Raffi mentioned before this show, I'm selling my soul to this podcast. We're having fun with it. So stick around with us. Join the ride because we're warming the bench for 1,400 people on TikTok, and we're looking to warm the bench for 5,000.
Absolutely. I mean, you kind of said everything. So once again, just anything that I can say, just rewind a minute and just listen to Davian. That basically covers everything. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed, and let's ride. So I am Raffi, along with Davian. Theodore will hopefully be back next week. I'm praying on the Leafs' downfall. We hope you have a great rest of your day. See ya.
Peace.